Oh, and he's gone.
Facebook won't pick it up tonight.
Where did Kurt go?
Kurt gone?
He was here.
He'll be back.
Pick it up, guys. Pause again for a minute, please, Paul. I can't seem to get. I can't get Facebook to pick it up.
Oh,
Well, I'll put a note on Facebook. Go to YouTube.
Yeah, we'll do that. We can keep live, I guess.
okay. So let me know when you want.
Okay, but it won't pick it up on Facebook. So let's keep going and see if we can get Kurt back. And Kurt's back.
I'm in, yeah.
Yeah.
Play your
Hit the wrong
music.
button.
Are you not entertained?
I guess we're done. We can stop sharing. We can come back in. All right. Yeah, for some reason, I'm gonna have to put a post up on Facebook to tell them that we're not there. Hang on just a second there, folks.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I get all night.
Yeah, I know you do. Stop sharing and come back in. And no, don't want to be there. I want to be here. Okay, I know we're live on YouTube, so just hang on for a second, folks. I got to let the people on Facebook know that we're not be able to stream there tonight.
Yep.
Silence is golden.
Please talk amongst yourselves.
Oh my eyes.
Mutter, 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 mutter.
Nope. Yup.
Ring.
Okay. That's done. We'll try again. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. And welcome back to our Sunday night offering of Astronomy Outreach for June the 18th. Now, the Sunday Night Astronomy Show. And this week, I want to say Happy Father's Day to these guys on here, who are fathers as well.
We're the forefathers.
Guys.
The forefathers. We're the forefathers of astronomy.
We have some issues on Facebook right now, so we're going to have to go with just the YouTube feed. So those who are on Facebook, hopefully they'll come over and see us over here. Anyway, my name is Chris Kerwin. I'm the host this evening and creator of the social media channels known as Astronomy by the Bay. I'm also an amateur astronomer and member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. First of all, I'd like to wish all the dads out there happy Father's Day, and I'd like to introduce our two regular co-hosts this evening as well, Mr. Paul Owen from the Moonshadow Observatory in beautiful Hampton. Paul, evening.
Hello.
And our other regular co-host here in the program, Mr. Mike Powell from the PFO Observatory here in beautiful St. John. Mike. Howdy, St. John.
Howdy.
Okay, well, on tonight's episode of the Sunday Night Astronomy Show, over the last few weeks, we've been talking about how to make the most of our summer evening sky. Part of that experience is getting to know your way around. The constellations act as our guide. We learn the constellations and then learn what treasures they hold. Now, there are a number of popular summertime constellations, but there are three that appear straight up all summer long. A star from each of these constellations forms what is known as the summer triangle. And our local astronomy expert, Kurt Nason, has joined us again this evening to discuss his favorite summertime patch of sky and what treasures we can find within. Welcome back to the program, Kurt.
Thank you for asking me.
Are you not entertained?
Anyway, also on tonight's show, Mike will bring us back Bino Bud with another fine binocular target of the week. Paul will provide us another interesting Rosanna's fun fact. And I'll be revealing some of the things to watch for in the night sky this week. And of course, we'll have your wonderful photo submissions to share as well. So this is the family-friendly interactive live broadcast. So for those of you who are joining us from my YouTube channel, I'll say tonight, not Facebook, I guess, we are happy to try and answer all of your astronomy questions here in real time. And of course, we'd like to welcome all those back who've been joining us through the local Rogers TV network. Thank you for your support. So I guess let's get started then with tonight's program and look at the constellations around the summer triangle and the treasures they contain.
Okay,
All right, I'm going to beat that over to you, and I'm going to get back
it is
on
me.
Facebook here and see what's going on, making sure people know.
Actually,
I'm
on the
disabled.
other side.
You want to just enable cart for full
Oh,
screen?
yes.
You invite the guy and disable him.
I think I don't let him talk.
I'll bubble up here. Last month when I was on it was Mother's Day. So this being Father's Day, and last month I did one on a very important mother in the sky. And you're thinking I was going to do one on Father's Day tonight, but the only father figure up there is Cepheus, and he sacrificed his daughter to a sea monster. So it's probably not the best one to do. So I changed it to the I changed it to the summer triangle and this constellations. All right. Uh-oh. There we go. Now if I move that down. I'll leave it up there. Okay, so there's a summer triangle. So we've got the three constellations up here that the brightest star of each one makes up the summer triangle. So we have Lyra or the harp up here with a very bright Vega. We have Cygnus the swan with the bright star Deneb, and Aquila the eagle here with its bright star Altair. So those three make up the summer triangle. And within them, we also have Sagitta the arrow and Vulpecula the fox. And I'll concentrate more on the three main ones on there. So these three stars in here, they're very bright, and stars are bright because of two things: their luminosity, which is related also to their temperature, and these three are all very bright. Their temperatures up around 8 to 10,000 kelvins, and also distance makes a difference, right? So, and the size of the star also makes a difference. So these are all about the same temperature, right? But Vega here is the brightest of the three, and it's actually the standard for the magnitude system. So we call that one magnitude 0, and it's actually 0.03 plus. And Deneb over here is about magnitude 1.25. Altair is around magnitude 0.8. And when you look at these, they seem, you can notice the Deneb's a little bit dimmer than these ones, but there's a difference in distances here. Altair is 17 light years away, just in the backyard. Vega not much farther at 25 light years. Deneb, about 1,400 or 1,500 light years away. And it's almost as bright as those. Right? So it's roughly a little bit less than 60 times farther than Vega is. So if we move Deneb up to where Vega is at 25 light years, there's a difference of 60 there. So inverse square law for magnitude or for brightness, that would make it 3,600 times brighter than Vega. Now 5 magnitudes gives you a factor of 100. We have 5 magnitudes there. And then there's the extra, say, we'll call it 40. So a factor of 40 is 4 magnitudes. And so it's about 9 magnitudes brighter, would be brighter if it's at biggest distance. So it would make it, if Deneb were 25 light years away, it'd be about as bright as the quarter moon. So it's a huge star. That's why it looks so bright so far away. And so in here, we have 2 birds, but quite often in older maps, Lyra also had a bird in there too. So you look at these as 3 birds, and so you can maybe look at that related to mythology, to the 12 labors of Hercules. His 6th labor was to get rid of these symphonian birds, and these ones had beaks of brass, and they're living in a swamp, and they had metallic-like feathers which they could shoot, and those feathers could penetrate armor. Yeah, so they made big nuisances of themselves in living in this swamp in Arcadia. So Hercules had to go get rid of them. We went there, and he was so massive he couldn't walk through the swamp because he'd sink. But Athena gave him these castanets, specially made. So he went up the mountain near the swamp, and he banged them away, and it scared the birds, so they flew up in the air. Then he shot a bunch of them down using the arrows that he had dipped in the hydra's blood, so they're poisoned. So he killed a few of those birds, and the rest of them scattered away to another land. And you run into them later on with on the voyage of Jason and the Argonauts. So that's one reason why you have the three birds up there. And Sagittarius here is probably one of those arrows that Hercules had shot. And here's Hercules up in here. All right, so we'll look at each of these individually. And here's Lyra the Lyre, the harp. Now, when I get to see a harp, I have to think of I'm an old Marx Brothers fan here. So here's Harpo playing on his harp here. So this is a sort of miniature version of a harp. And it's Harpo doing his famous Gookie. All right, so the harp comes from a tortoise shell that was on the shoreline. And Hermes had found it. He was a messenger of the gods in Greek mythology. In Roman mythology, was Mercury. So he found that tortoise shell, picked it up, banged on it a bit, and realized it had some good resonance in there. So he took it home, put some strings on it, made this beautiful sounding harp. So he played it for the gods up at Mount Olympus, his fellow gods and goddesses. And Apollo was really enamored with that. So Hermes traded his harp to Apollo, and he got the staff that Apollo had called the caduceus. Later he gave it, passed it on to guy that Ophiuchus in the sky. And so Apollo became very proficient at playing the harp. Eventually passed it on to his son Orpheus. Now Orpheus learned to play it, and he got very, very good at it. And he played such mellow music that he'd tame all the animals, and nobody could be upset or anything like that when he was playing that beautiful music. So he got married to Eurydice, and on their wedding day, she was bitten by a viper and died very quickly and went down to the underworld. And being very distraught, Orpheus, he wanted her back. So he took his harp, and he walked down to the underworld there, and he played some beautiful music there for the god of the underworld, Hades, and Persephone, who we saw last month, and his wife. And he really got them feeling very bad. So they let him take his wife back up onto the earth under one condition. As you're walking up the ramp or the tunnel back up the earth, he said, don't look back at Eurydice. And so they were walking up, and they're almost to the top, and Orpheus couldn't take it any longer. He kept thinking, well, maybe they're just making a fool of me. So he snuck a quick peek back to his wife, and then he saw her just being dragged back down into the underworld, and he could never get her back again. And so that made him really, really sad. So over time, he's out playing all the time, and any animals would be just sitting around listening to him. And there's a bunch of young ladies that were in love with him because he's a handsome guy, but he's also playing this beautiful music that just brought the love out in them. But he never paid any attention to them, and that got them very angry. So they got together one time, hatched a plan, went to see him, and he was playing his music. So they started screaming very, very loud so they couldn't hear his music. And then they beat him to death. Right? That's true love. So they took his harp and they threw it into the river. Watching from Olympus, or Zeus, he wanted to commemorate this. So he sent his eagle, or some stories it was a vulture, to dive into the river and fetch that harp. And he put the harp up into the sky to commemorate the beautiful music that Orpheus had played. Right, so this does look like a harp if you're used to seeing these things. I'm not. Right, the bright star Vega up there is up on the side, maybe up on the end. And there's a parallelogram of stars in here. Easy to pick out with the naked eye. And these represent the strings of the harp. There, and then maybe if you got a windy night, perhaps if you listen very, very closely, you might hear that beautiful music coming out of it. Okay. So I'll see a few things that are here in Lyra. Right now, in that story of the harp being thrown into the river, this is off an old map from a few hundred years ago. So you see well, it's more of an eagle than a vulture here, because vultures have more of a bald head. But you can see the harp there in the middle of it. Now, if you look in between the two of the parallelogram, down here at the bottom of it, on the side opposite Vega, is Sheliak and Sulafat. And if you look halfway between them and just a tad to the right, there's SEA 57, the Ring Nebula, which is a planetary nebula. So if you take a star roughly the mass of the sun, maybe a little bit less massive, up to about no more than 8 masses, sun masses. Okay, that's going to be going through its hydrogen in the core, and then eventually as the hydrogen starts to get low, right? The core will collapse a bit, and the star on the outside will expand a little bit. And it collapses enough that it can start turning the helium through a fusion reaction into carbon, right? And then it's going to have some hydrogen on the outside of that shell burning away. And eventually, once the hydrogen, the helium runs out, there's no more. It's not hot enough, particularly with the sun, to collapse it any further and take it on any further fusion reactions. Right, so the core collapses into an object about the size of the Earth. That'd be a white dwarf star. And once it gets down into about that size, the electrons of all the atoms in there have too much pressure to collapse any farther, so they're pushing against that. And so there's a shock wave, they blow away and throw all the gases out in the shell around that. What's left is the white dwarf star, and white dwarfs are very, very hot as they compress. So anywhere from 50,000 to maybe 150,000 kelvins. And so the ultraviolet radiation from that will make the gases glow that have been given out previously. And so we see the ring nebula here in a photograph. So we see this, we're looking right down through the middle of it here pretty much. And to see it in a pair of binoculars, it's going to look like a fat star. In a telescope, typically you would see just a little ring in there. You're not going to see the colors. It's only with the photographs you pick the colors up. And there's the white dwarf here in the middle of it. You need about a 16-inch telescope to see that star, unless you're Tim Tusa. So Tim, when he was younger, he had an operation on his eyes so he could see better, but our eyes have more or less ultraviolet filters in there, right? So the star like that, a hot star like a white dwarf, most of its energy is given off as ultraviolet light. And so without those filters in there, Tim could see that with an 8-inch telescope. And another big one here, it's a double star just off of Vega. It's Epsilon Lyrae. So Epsilon Lyrae is a naked eye star. And when you look at a pair of binoculars or a small telescope, you see 2 stars. So it's a double. But with a larger telescope and a very steady sky and magnification of about 100 power, each one of these can resolve into 2. Right? So they call that the double-double. Now, when you match that up with the donut down here, ring nebula looks like a smoke ring or a donut. And then you have the famous Tim Hortons constellation in the sky. There's big number 7 himself. He was one of the strongest guys in the NHL back in the 60s. And there's another Messier object here in Lyra. And it's M56. It's a globular cluster. And to find that, go to Siliphat here, one of the 2 here at the bottom. And you look here at the Beta Cygni, which is Albireo. We'll come to that one a little bit later on. So a line between Siliphat and Albireo gives you about halfway in between there, you get this globular cluster, M56. So it's fairly easy to pick up. These are about, this is 4 degrees across here. So these are about 8 degrees apart, roughly. So if you just come down between the line of those binoculars, and then you can pick up that globular cluster, and it's a tight little one like that. Look like a little fuzzy patch of binoculars. Small telescope will look bigger, and a bigger telescope you can maybe start to resolve some of the stars in there. All right, so that's Lyra. Then we go to Cygnus the Swan. Right? Now there's a famous asterism in here as well. Go from Deneb down here to Albireo, you take part of the wings in here. That's the Northern Cross, and it's quite big. And where this is in the sky from spring through winter and fall, and you get into the winter, autumn, and into the winter, you can still see that Northern Cross in the sky. So the end of January, it's standing upright in the northeast, just above the horizon. Right, so this does look like a swan, and it's flying down the Milky Way. Okay? Whereas over here, Aquila the eagle is flying up the Milky Way. So we've got Deneb, the bright star there, Saturn here in the middle, and Albireo up in here. And the wings actually spread out farther than the northern triangle will. So these ones in here make just the triangle or the cross, and the wings spread out a little bit farther like that. So he's got his wings back. And you can think of it as it's heading down toward the horizon, it's doing a swan dive, hopefully into a lake rather than into the ground. And so it's a large constellation, easy to pick up. There are a couple of historical aspects to this one. after the telescope was invented, people were trying to figure out how far away the stars actually are. And they wanted to use the parallax method. And they figured, well, parallax, if you could see a nearby star moving against a much more distant background stars over time. So they look at a particular star and take some pictures of it, or just do some measurements of it relative to the background stars. And 6 months later, do it again. When Earth is on the opposite side of the sun, so you get a baseline there of about 300 million kilometers. So if a star is close enough to us and you have good enough equipment, you can maybe see that particular star that has shifted position slightly against those much farther background stars. And from that, using a little bit of trigonometry, you can tell how far apart that star, how far away that star is, based on that baseline of 300 million kilometers. And it was very, very difficult to do. They tried for a couple of hundred years. It wasn't until Friedrich Bessel in 1837, he was using a very, very fine refractor made by Joseph Fraunhofer. So he never had any telescope made to that quality. And doing that, he was able to work out a parallax for 61 Cygni, and he came up with about 11 light years, and its actual distance is about 11.4. Another one goes to the 1960s. So up in this is Eta Cygni, and in this area back in the 60s, they noticed that there's a very strong radio source in there. Couldn't figure out what it was. They couldn't see anything. Right? Then get into the 70s, and there's Tom Moulton at the David Dunlop Observatory, and another couple of people over in England are watching this particular star that's in near Eta Cygni. It's a giant star, but it wasn't not as far enough away, so it's not really bright in our sky. But they're watching it; it could move back and forth. So they knew there must be a companion star there. But such a big star moving like that, you should be able to see the other star, but they couldn't. Therefore, they surmised it must be a black hole. And it turns out it was. So this is Cygnus X1, the first stellar black hole that was discovered. And so you can see the swan's head coming out there. There's Albireo, okay, very near Vulpecula the Fox, and the arrow down here. All right, so a couple of Messier objects here in Cygnus. So up here near Saturn, Paulus mentioned this before, because he likes to image this area in here. So there's your Telluride in here. The lines for that. And Saturn, just less than 2 degrees away, 2 degrees from here to here. There's M29 down in here. So Deneb be up in this area, Albireo down in this one. So just a short distance over there, you see this open cluster. That's pretty much what it looked like through a telescope. Now there's another open cluster. And this is where Cepheus sort of sneaks in here because it's Father's Day. And so here's Deneb. And Cepheus has nothing to do with this, but to find Deneb, with binoculars, you can see the string of stars. Right, so you come down here, and there's M39 down in here, and a little cluster of stars like that. So this is roughly about 9 or 10 degrees. You have to star hop along here with binoculars or your small telescope, and come into here to get that M39. Hey, there's another one in here. Actually, I'm going to back up a second. Talk a little bit about the mythology of this. Now, in the First Nations area, First Nations people in the Manitoba area, they look at this as a goose instead of a swan. So when you get into fall with the migration of the geese heading south, they could hear the geese going over at night. And of course, light pollution would be very great back there hundreds of years ago. So they go out at night and hear the geese, and they look up. They can sometimes see the silhouette of the geese against the bright stars of the Milky Way. So they figured this must be the sign of the goose, and the Milky Way is the path that the goose follows on its migration route. Now, in the most common story from Greek mythology, there are 2 of them. The most common one deals with Zeus and his lust for women. Now, reading some stories of mythology, they really dig into that with Zeus, and you learn not a really good person he was. But if you read stories, the older versions of it, like from Alcott's book from 100 years ago or more, and I've read a book of mythology from the 1800s, and that particular one's written by a minister. So when they talk about Zeus, they say he marries the woman. All right, so we'll we'll use that one. So with Cygnus, in Sparta, there was Queen Leda. She was the wife of King Tyndareus. And she was out in the pond there when they outside the palace or whatever they had, taking a bath, and up above there, Mount Olympus, Zeus saw her and immediately fell in love. And so he came down and changed himself into a beautiful white swan. So the gods, they could change their shapes. And he sort of moseyed on over the water to where she was bathing. And Leda saw this beautiful swan and was really taken by it. And the swan was very, very gentle with her, and she was stroking his head. And Zeus, he changed his back into his normal form, and he married Leda. Snap, snap, grin, grin, wink, wink. And so that night she went to bed with her husband Tyndareus, and months later she gave birth to 4 kids. And in some stories she gave birth to 2 eggs, and in each egg, in one egg, there was a boy, Castor, and a girl, Clytemnestra. And this one was fathered by King Tyndareus. The other one, a boy and a girl, the boy was Pollux, and the girl was Helen, right? And they were mortals, or immortal, because they were fathered by Zeus, right? So you have Castor and Pollux are the Gemini twins. Now, Helen and Clytemnestra, this is Helen of Troy. And so they both married kings of Greek regions. Helen married Menelaus of Sparta, and Clytemnestra married Agamemnon. So if you read the Iliad by Homer, it talks about the Battle of Troy there. So Helen was kidnapped by Troy by Paris, a Trojan, when he was visiting there. And that led to the launching of 1,000 ships in the Battle of Troy. Now, for anybody that's a fan of, say, the movie Dune or the books of Dune, you've just read the Six by Frank Herbert. His son has written other books as well with another guy. And Agamemnon and Menelaus, their father was named Atreus. He was the king of Mycenae at the time. And so in some other books of Dune, back in the times when there were the robots and the people, and the robots are pretty much controlling the galaxy at that time. But there were people on the same planet who were part robot and part person, and they called themselves the Titans. And the leader of them, he named himself Agamemnon. And so he had a son, he had several sons, but they didn't live up to what he wanted to. So his last son, he had the name of, his last name would have been based on Atreus, who was the father of Agamemnon. So that's where the name Atreides came from. So the family of the Atreides came from that particular Titan. All right, slide ahead here. So very quickly, look here at Sagittar. Okay, so here's M71. So this arrow, you can look at it as being, there's the fletching back there with 2 stars, star here, and a star here. So if you look at these 2 in the middle and just a little bit below it, there's the globular cluster, M71. Easy one to see. If you come down to the one here at the point of the arrow and come up 2 degrees, you're into the constellation of Vulpecula. That's where we have another even brighter planetary nebula called the Dumbbell Nebula, and it's M27. So you just come down to that one, up 2 degrees, well, 2.5 degrees. So actually, that's about 3 degrees. Come up that far, and you can pick that M27 out quite easily in a pair of binoculars. It's that bright. This is one that's much imaged by astrophotographers as well. All right, so a few other things here to see in Cygnus. There's the constellation, there's Deneb. Coming down here to Albireo, the wings out this way. And if we look up in here, just a little bit off Deneb, right, we see this red patch in here, and you recognize that as looks like North America. So this is often imaged, and Paul has some great images of it. This is the North American Nebula in GC 7000. You have the Gulf of Mexico in here. So if you're looking for it in binoculars, if you got a dark, clear sky, you can pick this up. And you're going to look for the Gulf of Mexico. And once you pick that out, try to find the rest of it. And this companion one over here, another emission nebula, is called the Pelican Nebula, but Paul and I both agree it looks more like a pterodactyl. That pelican's a lot easier to spell. Right? And then down here off the wing of Cygnus, over this star a little bit farther, you'll see a little couple of red patches in there. And that's the Veil Nebula, two sides of that one, the east and the west. And this is a supernova remnant. And you come up to Albireo down here, and this is a common target for outreach in the summertime. So this is another double star. It's not, these are just, it's a visual double because these two stars are not related. They're not a binary. Right, they're heading off in different directions. So it's a colorful double star. You have the brighter yellowish or gold colored one, and then the slightly dimmer blue or sapphire colored one here. So a few things to pick up. Now, I was at Prince of Wales here west of St. John about 20 years ago with an Astroscan, which is a 4¼ inch telescope, easy one to use. And it had no 3 filter in it. And that night I picked it up. I picked up the North American Nebula in there with that filter. And then after seeing it, then I could pick it up somewhat in binoculars. And I also had a good view of the Veil Nebula in there with that O3 filter. And it looked just like that. You can see the two sides of it. And move on to Aquila, the Eagle. Okay, the Eagle is flying up the Milky Way. Right, it doesn't have really any of its own Messier objects in here, but you can pick it out. You have the bright star there, Altair. Then you have Terra Z here and Alshane on either side of it. So these three, sometimes they call that the Summer Orion's belt. And with these ones, that makes the head of the Eagle. You come down, wings are coming up this way, and then you got a long tail coming down in here. Now, the Eagle was Zeus's pet. And so if Zeus didn't like somebody, he would call his Eagle to bring him his thunderbolts. And once you get the thunderbolt, he might send the Eagle off with a thunderbolt to kill the person, or he'd fire it off himself. And so if Zeus didn't like somebody, they didn't stick around very long. And any other dirty job he had, he'd send the Eagle out to do it. It might have been that Eagle that went and fetched the lyre out of the river after Orpheus was killed. The common one for this one is up in Mount Olympus, they'd have their daily feast, their daily meals. They'd have a cupbearer. And a young girl, Hebe, was the normal cupbearer. And she was injured or sick there one day. So Zeus sent his Eagle down to find a beautiful youth and bring him back to be the cupbearer. And so he went down and found Ganymede, a beautiful young lad, and grabbed him by the talons and brought him up. And so then Ganymede became the cupbearer of the gods in there. And one of these people that Zeus was very, very fond of as well. And so he became famous there as a good cupbearer of the gods. And some old maps you will see another old constellation here called Antonius. And you might look at that as being Ganymede carried up by the Eagle. Okay, so just taking another jump down here to another constellation. There's M11 down here, the wild duck cluster. So you get some more birds up in this area. And wild duck cluster is a good one. It's an easy one to pick up because I've run across it by accident the first time I saw it, just touring around with binoculars. But to find it, I come down to the tail down in here, and then a string of stars here leads you right to M11. There's the tail. These are the string of stars, and here's the wild duck cluster in here. And it's a very thick cluster, hundreds of stars in there. And somebody looking at it back in the 1800s thought it looked like a group of ducks there. There might have been a V shape in there. Sometimes I see two V shapes. It's a beautiful one to look at. There's one more story here in ancient China. Okay, and there's a land here. The emperor had a beautiful young daughter, this princess, and in mythologies, the women were often weavers. Right, so she was a weaver, very adept at it as well, doing her weaving all the time. Now out in the yard, there's a cowherd. He's looking after all the cattle of the king. And one day the princess looked out and saw this handsome young cowherd, and he looked at her. And just like in the movies, the eyes made contact and they immediately fell in love with each other. And so they wanted to see each other, and maybe sneaking off to do that at times, but they were so much in love that they asked the emperor if they could be married. And he really wasn't so much enamored by having his daughter marry a cowherd, but he agreed to it and said, okay, you can get married, but keep on doing your work. So they got married, and like a lot of newlyweds, they had other things to do, so they neglected the duties. But there's no weeding getting done, the cattle were being abandoned like that, and they got warnings 2 or 3 times from the emperor, but they just kept slacking off. So eventually he moved the cowherd to the opposite side of a nearby river, so they couldn't cross that river, and they were separated, but they could look at each other, but they were so much they wanted to be together, but they couldn't because of the slacking off they did there before. But once a year, all the magpies in the area will come. This is on the 7th day of the 7th month. They'll come and form a bridge across that river, and the cowherd can come over and ask him to have a night with his wife. And he has to cross back over again. All right, so this is a big festival in Asia this time. Right? And representing the weaver and the cowherd here, the weaver is Vega, the cowherd is Altair, and that river is the Milky Way. Okay. That's a very old tale, and one that's still celebrated today as a big festival. Okay, so that's the end of what I had to say. So everybody have a good summer and go out. I know it gets late or dark late at night, so go out anyway, look up, and just keep looking up at the stars. My favorite Herman cartoon.
Good.
Awesome, Kurt. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No scary stories this time. That's great.
Well, it's family show. I had to keep it.
Yeah, and he did basically mostly. Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
I started
Grin,
talking
grin,
about
wink.
Zeus. I said, "Oh, here we come."
Grin, grin, wink, wink. He married a lot of women. And maybe a young boy, too.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go from there. Then maybe do a vinyl bud.
I know, bud.
We can do that.
We can. It should be popping up on our lives here.
There we are.
There he is.
Righty. Binocular target of the week this week by Bino Bud is, and it's up in the same area that Kurt's talking about, is Mini Orion. And it is. We all know the Orion constellation. This is a mini version of it. Am I being heard? Nod your head if I'm being heard. So this asterism is comprised of 7 stars that form a little constellation Orion. It's located near the star Deneb in Cygnus, and Deneb is the tail of Cygnus the Swan. How do I find it in the sky? Well, there's Cygnus. We just went all over it. And if you went outside at about, I guess it'd be about 11 o'clock tonight and oriented yourself 65 degrees east and looked up, you would definitely find the Northern Cross, the brightest star in that, or in Cygnus, and the brightest star in the tail is Deneb. And this circle would be about the size of a Telrad finder circle, about 4 degrees. Just come down off Deneb a little bit and look right in there, and you will find the Mini Orion. What will it look like? Well, 1, 2, the belt, and then 3, 4. So you got Betelgeuse and across, the belt in the center down here, and then a bright star rides at the bottom. It does look a bit like a mini version of the Orion constellation. So if you're looking for, winter in the middle of summer, you can go ahead and find Mini Orion. What will you see? Well, you won't quite see this in a pair of binoculars because you won't see the color, but they are amazingly beautiful stars. You got an orange, bright orange star, a blue star, 3 stars make up the belt, another blue star, and another orange star over in the corner. So it does look like a miniature version of the Orion constellation in 10 by 50 binoculars. It's not the biggest thing in the world. It's right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stars all together with the belt in the center. It's small. It's give or take about the size of the full moon. So if you look up, you find Deneb, come down a little bit and look around, you will find the mini Orion in there. And guess what? I just closed on that waterfront property. That's karma. Last binocular target of the week by No Bud.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Another great target. Another great summertime target. Okay.
Yeah.
We go
Bring
from there.
winter back to summer.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do what's up and then Rosanna, how's that? Paul, good?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's do a little bit of what's up. There's not a whole lot here that I'm going to talk about tonight. Make sure I come up with
What's up?
what's up.
Uh,
Share the screen. I think it's going to be where we are.
I don't know, after 2 weeks of clouds, it'd be nice to see what's up.
Wouldn't it? Let's see where we are. Is that us? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Looks like St. Martin's.
It is. That is St. Martin's. Yeah.
Well, doggy.
Well, doggy, that was a great time down there that night.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a little bit of a look, saying goodbye to the spring constellations and hello to the summer ones, like Kurt talked about there. Here's our sky as of 11 o'clock, say tonight, Atlantic time. So Cygnus up here on the upper left over the east part of the sky. Then you've got Lyra here and Aquila. So the three stars that make up the summer triangle, and then Vega and Altair right there. Hercules is off to the right of that. Booty's there as well. Ophiuchus, big constellation. Sagittarius getting above the horizon. Not quite up as high yet as we like to see it, but it's getting up there. We do have lots of globular clusters in here. The Milky Way is going right up through this way. So the sky is improving for, I mean, our spring constellations, Leo and stuff are moving off to the western part of the sky. So we are definitely getting into our summertime sky, and which we should be, I guess. This week I've been hearing a lot about this, and it's been all over the news and all over the media, social media. Been talking a lot about a very special morning planet parade, where 5 naked eye planets can be seen visible in the morning sky. And I'd like, okay, well, in fact, only 2 are actually really visible naked eye. Mercury may be visible with binoculars if you can get it just before the sun rises, but it's a tough one right now. Kurt, is it not?
I tried twice last week and I couldn't get it. Hoping for a clear morning. I couldn't get it because there was about 5 degrees of cloud on the horizon.
Oh,
By the time I get up to the top of that, it would have been too bright. So
yeah.
I'm hoping this week.
So yeah, in fact, only 2 are visible really. So Uranus can be visible naked eye if you know exactly where to look, but even in a telescope, it'll only appear as a soft ball, and the same is true with the planet Neptune. And Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune have been in our morning sky for quite some time now anyway. So why the hype? I don't know what the reason for the hype was for this weekend. He said it was all around the 17th of June. So really can't see the hype. Why the hype was there, I don't know. But I mean, and there's also like so I just want to kind of look in real quick on my phone tonight. And I get to see all this kind of stuff too. Like this is all just kind of clickbait, they call it, right? So mammoth 210-foot asteroid hurtling towards Earth. NASA's on alert. I looked up, it was actually 10 times farther away than the moon. And then this one was 8 times farther away. And I mean, they just kept going down like that. There was 20 or 30 of them. So watch the NASA sites. There are places that you can go to. NASA actually has a near Earth object site, and they will update it regularly on what rocks are coming in our area that we'd have to be concerned about at all. But there's really nothing at the moment to be concerned about at all that we know of. So just watch all this kind of stuff. Of course, what you can do enjoy is a wonderful view of the 2 largest planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Both will be available for viewing for a while yet in our morning sky. They're going to start switching to the evening in a little while. On Tuesday, Mars, Venus, and our moon. So we get a nice little grouping here coming up. Pleasing display in the early evening sky through the week as our moon visits Venus and then Mars. On Tuesday, look for a thin crescent moon as it lags behind Venus and Mars. That's looking west at around 10:30. On Wednesday, June 21st, our crescent moon with Earthshine pays a closer visit to brilliant Venus, the second and third brightest objects in our sky together there. They will be less than 5 degrees apart, so they should easily fit together in the field of view of most binoculars. If you want to try that, makes a great photo op for sure too. Wednesday, of course, the summer solstice. The summer solstice occurs at the moment the Earth's tilt toward the sun is at its maximum, and when the sun is directly over the Tropic of Cancer. That moment is on Wednesday at 11:57 a.m. Atlantic Daylight Time. Now, this phenomenon has been observed since ancient times and may be one of the earliest astronomical observations in human prehistory. Knowing the yearly cycle of the seasons was vital to the survival of ancient people, and both the summer and winter solstices were key dates on the calendar. So happy summer. Also, on Thursday, I thought I had one here for Wednesday. Maybe it's the next slide. No, okay. Thursday, we've got the celestial show continues on Thursday with our moon resting between Mars and the bright star Regulus in Leo. Mars and moon will be visible together in binoculars as well. Nice evenings with the moon, and we should have some clear nights coming up, I think, as far as the calendar shows right now. Also like to go to this chart, of course, with every week, Lisa's lookup. Lisa puts out this great chart every month. It lists the events, it lists the dates of the events, the peak times of the events, and what you need to see them with naked eye, binoculars, or a telescope. You can follow Lisa's lookup at Ruby Moonbeams on Instagram, Twitter, Mastodon, and Facebook. And we have our St. John Astronomy Club, Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, Brunswick chapter calendar that Kurt here puts out for us. Very detailed, lots of information in here. If you want to find out what's happening over the next week or so, here's where I get lots of my information. It's a 6-week calendar, basically. So it takes us right up to July 15th now. So you can follow that. You can get that at sjastronomy.ca. You can download it right there from our website. Great job on that, Kurt, every time.
Thank you.
And this is it.
Yes, sir. That's always it.
Right. Okay. And I'll stop sharing. There you go. Back. Okay. Kind of a quick view of what's up. There wasn't very much this week because of the weather, and I really didn't get a whole lot of photo submissions either this week because of the weather. I even went picking at people's pages and tried to find stuff, and there's nothing even there. So anyway, that'll be a short topic too. But let's go ahead.
Fun and nebula.
Yeah. Let's go ahead with the Rosanna's fun fact now, maybe, Paul.
Alrighty then. Let's see now. Share screen, as it were. And this is this week's
Rosanna's Fun Fact.
And welcome back, Rosanna, for another great fun fact. And Kurt, you're mentioned in this.
Oh,
So let's get right into it. Rosanna writes, "Hi, Paul. I heard that Kurt was going to be on the show this week, highlighting the summer triangle, a triangle that includes 2 bird constellations and Lyra, the harp. They got me wondering about the connection of ornithology and astronomy. A lot of astronomers are also avid birders, and 2 of our own astronomers, Paul and Mike, are avid bird photographers." And that's Mike. He's one heck of a grackle.
Okay.
That's me. Always squawking in the trees. But how else might astronomy influence ornithology or verses besides in constellation myths? Back in 1946, someone else put forth a connection between these 2 subjects. A Harvard paper, William Renzi writes, "There would not appear to be much connection between the study of birds and the study of astronomy. However, there is one field of investigation wherein ornithologist and the astronomer have found it to be mutual advantage to collaborate. And as a consequence of these cooperation, some interesting facts and possibilities have revealed themselves." Well, this was back in 1946. So what have we done since? So back then, astronomers were involved in helping track the migratory birds by watching them cross the moon through telescopes. It's a little more complicated than just counting these diagrams as illustrated. I'm just going to touch base on a couple of these. There's a few of them, but just to give you an idea of what they went through. So here's figure 1. So suppose the path of a bird across the disk of a full moon has been accurately marked from observations through a telescope. Let A, B in figure 1 be this path. What information can be obtained from this? The answer is the exact direction in which the bird was flying, assuming that it was flying essentially horizontally, the fraction of a second it took to cross the moon, which is a safe assumption. To see this, refer to figure 2. The observer is at 0, and 0y is the north-south line, and 0x is it's actually another figure. So again, looking at this, it may look somewhat complicated, and it is, but I will progress to something else. So this next one, again, is more math, trying to figure out what is what. So here the symbols have these meanings, and then it goes into describe what the symbols actually mean. The azimuth, the zenith distance from the moon's center, position angle of direction of path on the moon's disks. So this last angle 0, which is, I'm assuming this one here, is found by drawing a line parallel to AB through the moon's center. So there's AB, so we draw a line parallel, and there we have it. And through the moon's center, figure 3, and measuring the angle from the axes. Excuse me. So so she goes on and covers a few more of these things. So I'm just going to get down to one of the last ones. Okay, there we go. So basically, after all that math and all that math, she goes, I'm not going to pretend for 1 second that I followed the math. Most birds migrate at night, and the stars and the moon aid their navigation. In the 1960s, German ornithologist Franz and Eleanor Saver discovered that birds navigate the night sky by using the stars. A decade later, a Cornell scientist was able to identify the specific star patterns by using the indigo bunting. For indigo bunting's orientation to the night sky develops as the young birds observe the stars. When star patterns are reversed in a planetarium, buntings will change their orientation 180 degrees, showing that they use the stars to guide themselves. Another reason for night flying is the atmosphere at night is free of daytime thermals, making it more stable and easier to maintain a steady course, especially for smaller birds who may fly as slow as 15 miles per hour. Now, I know you want to know, as I looked it up, the fastest clock migrator is 60 miles per hour. That's pretty fast. Now, you might ask, what about radar? Radar has been used for decades and to help track migrations, but the problem with radar is that it can't differentiate between targets. For example, bats, birds, and large insects all get counted. It is also expensive to use in the field. However, listening has become a way of tracking. Software has now been developed that can track birds by their unique calls. The software is based on years of research on acoustic recordings by people like Bill Evans, who back in 2013 might receive and record 5,000 calls from a single station in a single night. Each call had to be identified and turned into its matching spectrogram. That's a lot of stuff. And in fact, there's a bird program I've got on my phone called Merlin. And when you're out in the field and you're hearing a bird call and you don't know what it is, you can turn on this app, turn on listen to bird, and it will identify the bird's call immediately. So you know exactly what it is that you're listening to. So it's a really cool app, but I think a lot of that was probably developed based on what I'm seeing in this Rosanna's fact. Now, although simple moon watching for birds remains a niche, science hobby, and is always a nice surprise to catch a silhouette of winged passerbys, there is now Lunaro, or Lunaro, I'll call it. The hardware components of Lunaro involve a camera to record video, a small computer, a spotting scope, and a motorized mount. It uses simple computer vision techniques to keep the moon in focus and move along with it. It can pick up on birds that the passive observer may miss. The mount can accommodate a wide variety of telescopes. If birders or ornithologists want to bring their own, the cost of hardware is under $400. So in hobbies today, that's really not a lot of money, is it? Now below this image here is a snippet of the annotated time-lapse video of nocturnal bird flights. So that's kind of cool. So they're using, of course, the moon to see them and tracking them. So it's really interesting to see that. And since the Lyra harp constellation is Lyra in French, I had to include this clip of a lyra bird, and it can imitate any sound and apparently is a Star Wars fan. Now let me see if I can play that.
Google Ads helps you turn curiosity into customers who are
After
interested
the
in
ad.
what your business has to offer. Now you can reach people based on what they're curious about. Google
okay.
Ads turn
I should have had this
curiosity
ready, but-
into customers. Visit ads.google.com to learn more.
Okay, here we go.
You gotta get me one of them.
Oh my gosh, that is friggin' amazing. Oh, and that also is this week's. Oh, I can't even do it now. That bird has got me all kafluffered. There we go.
Rosanna's Fun Fact.
Oh, now that was friggin' awesome. What a way to finish a fun fact, hey?
Who says there are no stand-up bird comics?
Yeah.
After a night out in the field when you're doing a star party, that's how you feel.
I was waiting to hear Luke call me Baldwin. Wow,
Thank you, Rosanna. That was so much fun. That was truly
Crazy.
a fun
he
fact.
was. Eric King's on there saying, "Oh wow," he said, "Okay, it all makes sense now, as my oldest is always taking photos of birds and can often ID most birds from memory, and she is quite taken by astronomy as well. She's here watching tonight, and she giggled and told me it's the outside thing. It's the outside thing." True enough.
Oh, that's funny.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosanna. Another great
What-
talk.
Yeah, one thing about birds following the stars there, I've read that they don't so much recognize the constellations, but say they're flying north, they can watch the shifting of the constellations over the night. And of course, the ones that aren't shifting as much is in the direction of north.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's
Makes
great.
sense.
Yeah. I think Lisa talked about this
Yeah.
at one time. I think she even did a talk on here about that, or it might have been what the astro imaging tutorial thing. I'm not sure which, but I do remember something about this. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Susan?
unbelievable how things evolve and
Yeah.
how the stars are so important for navigation, not only for humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Rosanna. Another great talk.
Indeed.
Okay, I'm going to share a few photos now if I can. Right screen here. Why can't I share my screen? There it is.
Kind of like the myth about hummingbirds coming back on the backs of geese. I can just picture these little guys with little spurs on their boots going, yeehaw!
Yeah, you. Yeah, you.
This is the one I want.
There we go.
There we are.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we got a few here, just a few pictures to share tonight. Jeff Pendlebury sends these ones in. He says moon, followed by sunrise from Victoria Park in Charlottetown.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. Smoky sunrise looks like. Tuesday morning, June 13th, he says.
Wow.
Awesome shot.
View to the future in about 3 billion years.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And Robert Gadet, Robert's been doing some beautiful stuff with the sun there.
Yes.
So,
Nice work.
the sun on June 16th at St. George Elementary School. We were down there the other day, set up for some kids, showing them some solar observing. Got lots of oohs and wows because kids hadn't seen the sun before through the telescope. They were pretty impressed.
No.
Anyway, he finished his capture, ASI Air Plus, a Lunt 40 millimeter hydrogen alpha solar scope, an ASI 174 mm planetary camera, processed in auto stacker 3, IMPPG and Photoshop for post-processing. One single 30-second video was captured. 15% of 887 frames were used in the stack at 50 frames captured per second. So I've included the monochrome version here to display the prominences a little better. So there we are.
Very nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome work.
Lots of detail there.
That's
Robert went from not taking any sun pictures to this, so
Yeah.
he's picked it up really quickly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great job, Robert. I follow that with David Hoskins' capture here, sunspots and filaments imaged earlier. AR 33, 35, and 36 are on the left, and then 33, 33 is on the right. Sunspot areas. 35 and 36 has a potential for M-class solar flares. So there's a zoom in.
Crazy.
A lot of facula around there, a lot of activity there. Sun's been very active lately, but it's been great to, you can take the solar scope out now and pretty well you're going to get something. Almost every day, sunspots. I also had these ones here. I'm not sure if I showed these last week or not, but I'm going to show them again anyway. Venus grazing through the Beehive cluster there, M44, and Mars as well.
Yep.
And I just got a couple more here to show Mr.
Ah,
Powell's
Star Trails.
going off with your information that you taught us, Paul. So
that's right. I went back and I watched the show, and I went through. I got that software that Paul was talking about to download, Star Stacks, I think it's called, or something like that. And then I took my shot, and sure enough, I got Star Trails.
you worked.
Oh,
Nicely done.
yeah. Very nice, Mike.
That was
Mr.
fun.
Jones capture of the sunset.
That's beautiful.
Oh, yes.
Today.
Sunset.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Nice to see the sun.
Yeah, that was.
Rise doesn't matter. See it. Period. It's coming. I know it's up there.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, if you have any photos that you'd like to share, we got one more show to share them with. You can bring them here to Sunday Night Astronomy Show at gmail.com, and we'd be happy to put them up on next week's broadcast. So we'll stop our share for now. And I think that's going to be our show for this evening.
Well, before you do that, I just want to. I'm going to see if I can just share a picture. Just hang on a second.
Sure.
And just give me 1 centon to find it here. See if I can make it so, number one. There. I'm going to share a picture that I'm going to I tell you what I wrote on it when I posted it. So just a sec. Where's the share button? It's gone.
It's-
There.
You didn't put your quarter in the side.
So you can look at this as either Jabba the Hutt coming out of the water. But here's the caption that I wrote when I posted this picture. I wrote, I was knee deep in thought, saw you, so I took a leap of faith that you may be interested in conversation before I croak. But my memory, well, it's froggy at best. I'm telling you the truth, or am I Fibian? Enough said. I'm going to grab that paper. I was going to grab that paper, but read it. I just had to share that because I thought that was so cute.
Awesome.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't know where you come up with the puns, Paul. Was that you? Did you come up with all those by yourself?
Those are rare on
Oh,
a Paul.
yeah, how do you-
Paul.
It's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And so then in closing tonight, Kurt, thanks for another great talk. Always great to have you on the program. We'll have you back when we start back.
Oh, and by the way, Kurt, thank you for bringing up Cygnus.
You're welcome.
That was great. Yeah, good stuff. Anyway, whatever. We do have one final show before we take a summer break. So in our last program, we're going to take a look at some of the best celestial events of the summer coming up. And we'll talk a little bit about some upcoming public outreach events that we have coming up through the summer and into the fall a little bit. We'd also like to have a little bit of a discussion with all of you, what your stargazing plans are for the summer. Do you have any comments on the show? Like, how has it been for you? This is episode 183. So we're going to take this break for the summer, and then we'll be back again in early fall. But if you miss us, you can always go back and get one of the other episodes. We're all up on YouTube.
What's the blooper reel?
Yeah, that's coming. That's coming.
It's only 183 of them.
So please join us next week for our final broadcast before the fall, before our summer break. Sorry. Okay, special thanks again, though, of course, to Rosanna for her contribution to the show. Thank you, Rosanna, for sticking with us so long. I really do appreciate it. Also, special thanks goes out to Trudy and all those who share our program for us. We hope that all of you who would join us from Rogers as well enjoyed the program tonight. If you'd like more information about the wonders of the night sky, you can find me at astronomybythebay.ca. Remember, too, we do love getting your photos, so send them into astronomybythebay@gmail.com, and we will happy to include them on our next broadcast. Now, I will mention that next Saturday, we have been invited to be part of the St. John West Days. Their activities are taking place all week long. We were supposed to be at the Sheldon Point Barn up at the Urban Nature Park today, but of course the weather didn't cooperate as it does with most events. So we're going to try again on Saturday. It'll be from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, but we're going to be inside the park, up at our normal parking space inside the park where we would park up by the kiosk for Saturday. If it's Sunday, we'll be down beside the kiosk itself. So we'll have some solar telescopes set up there to take a look at our sun. And we're going to have a few other telescopes like these maybe brought out just to let you take a look at them, and you can ask us some questions on them. What's your best bet for a beginner's telescope, that kind of thing. If you have any equipment that you're having trouble with, you want us to help you out with, bring that along as well. We'll be there from 1 to 4 p.m. Saturday, and the rain date is Sunday. So I'll leave it with that for now. Also, please, we do love getting your photos, so send them into astronomybythebay@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to include them on our next broadcast. And please let your friends and family know too that we will be back here next Sunday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook to entertain you on astronomy and the wonders of the night sky. So for now, from Kurt, Mike, and Paul, myself, we wish you a safe week, everybody. Lots of clear skies, as we like to say. Open your eyes to view the skies. Keep your scopes pointed up. Good night, everyone.
Ow! I have definitely been poked.
That's that goose.
I've been sicknessed.